And we are back, and welcome back. We're moving into our deep dive section. And our deep dive for this week is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? But we're talking about fiction becoming reality. That's right. A famous philosopher by the name of Jean-Luc Picard once said, "Things are only impossible until they're not." As captain of the starship USS Enterprise, Picard saw plenty of technology that would have been considered impossible until it wasn't, including the universal translators, the 3D printer-esque replicators. While a lot of this stuff is just sci-fi to the Star Trek viewers, there are other fictional interventions that have since become a reality. And as science pushes even further than ever did before, um, uh, as science pushes further than it ever did before, like a monkey playing ping pongs with their brains, it's becoming more and more evident than ever that it can easily become a reality in 2021. Science fiction can achieve a lot more than just looking into the future. It also provides a means for developing ethical guidelines that may become applicable when the time comes. Writers like George Orwell and Aldous Huxley have warned against totalitarian states that control the populace by means of surveillance techniques. In Orwell's 1984 still resounds even 70 years later after its publication in 1949, and it became the #1 bestseller on Amazon after Donald Trump was elected president. Fiction and reality have quite a unique relationship, and despite being literal opposites, one can't be without the other and vice versa. Kev, Brahman, let's start off with you. What is something that's previously been dismissed as fictitious, but has now come into reality?
Aliens.
That's one for sure.
Right there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, just go straight to the heart of it.
Or I guess we should say not aliens, but UFOs, because
Mhm.
we haven't seen any like proof of an alien life form, but we have definitely seen numerous accounts and yeah, exactly. But yeah. Or even like you mentioned the surveillance state, like totalitarian surveillance societies, and like we all have surveillance on us. Like I'm right here, like right in front of me, constantly being surveilled.
Watched.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah, we've got tracking devices on all of us. I think, there's other things too. Giant squid is one that I think of a lot of. That was something that was completely just fictional folklore, and now we proved that this did actually exist. VR, virtual reality, androids, clones. Kev, do you have any other examples?
Yeah, I think like even just like you said with clones and biomedical stuff, a lot of bioengineering has been going down.
Clones are crazy. The first thing my vet asked me when my dog died, this like past year, my dog passed away, and she said, "Would you like us to clone him for you?" Like that is
Whoa.
just they
Wait,
offer
what?
you. She's like, "Yeah, 50 grand will get you clone of your dog."
And Braun just revealed she doesn't live on Earth. That's crazy. What? Like seriously? Like so they were? Huh? They're gonna clone?
Kev's not over this. Kev's gotta go back. They wanted to clone your dog?
Yeah. Like she said it astonished, but at the same time, like it was just something else that everyone had been asked. Or would
Yeah, I thought this was like a normal thing. Do you not get asked when to
No,
I dog cloned at any point in time. No. I thought that was just a California thing at first. I thought I was behind when she said it, right? Like that was like, oh yeah, no, that's oh yeah, the dog cloning business. That's a thing, right?
That's fucking insane.
It is insane.
No. Yeah, for me, I think it's AI, and I know it's not the AI yet that we want to that it's sentient, or maybe it is, we don't know. But I think artificial intelligence, right? Like it's headed to a really scary place, like going from just being able to text somebody by your voice to all of a sudden being able to write and compose music, or make someone look like Tom Cruise. And sound like Tom Cruise. It's all this weird, like AI kind of scares me in that sense. Not necessarily are they gonna like rise up and take over us. I mean, they might. Who knows? But like just to the point where it becomes so like hamstrung to AI that it cripples us in a way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the rapidness, the rapid development of AI,
Rapid, yeah.
yeah, is what's scariest about it. I mean,
Yeah.
we've gone straight to like, I mean, Sophia is a citizen of like a certain country,
Yeah,
I believe,
yeah.
like a
I
registered
think, like,
citizen.
Denmark? I forget. Somewhere in
Yeah,
Europe.
and that's a full on android. You know,
Dude, the
like
fucking giant squid.
yeah,
Yeah, so they've
Like,
never seen one alive. That's what's so freaky to me is like they've found their corpses, but
right.
never actually been
Or
able to like track one that's
well,
living.
they've seen some on video footage. I remember they got
Oh,
that one of the
okay.
big thing that they've that was a big revelation is that they actually got some video footage of a giant squid swimming, and
yeah.
I'm
like
looking this up.
It's hard to see. You
right,
can see like a tentacle, maybe an eye,
yeah,
because it's so deep down there, deep in the
Oh my God.
depths of the ocean.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with
It's crazy.
I mean, there's tons of fantasy elements that have really kind of come into reality, and some scary, some cool, some really interesting, you know. But with all these fantasy elements coming into reality, it would be safe to say that kind of keeping an open mind towards
Mm.
imagination can lead to discovering new things about our own world, right? If you
Just
keep
do your research, Dad. Just do your research.
yeah, well, that's what I mean. We'll start off with you. Are there any downsides into believing in fictional elements and like believing like I want to believe like the UFOs kind of situation, like that kind of like just trying to have hope that there could be something that's beyond our understanding?
Yeah, when you
Is there downsides to believing in fictional
when it
elements?
starts affecting everyone's livelihood, like QAnon beliefs, when
Yeah,
all these radical, when you start trying to base your government off of conspiracy theories,
right.
that's when it becomes a problem, right? Where you are literally not living in the real world. You're living in the world that someone else that you don't even know exists or not is telling you these are reality, these are the facts, and you need to take action and base your entire life off of it. That's when it, I think, becomes a reality. The other side is just it's like the lesser side is it's a bummer we don't have flying cars yet. But I
Yeah,
also realize that will probably never happen because in a car crash, if you crash your car on the highway, most likely it's just like, oh damn, I ran into a rail. I'm either going to be hurt, somebody else is hurt. If you crash your car here, your shit's probably going to plummet to somebody like sitting at the park chilling, and all of a sudden your fucking space Tesla crashes down and just ruins their day, man. Like,
yeah,
I don't think we can have flying cars, sadly enough.
yeah.
As I start to think about it.
Because people are too stupid to have flying cars. That's
Yeah,
why we can't have
yeah.
Well,
flying
that's why it
cars.
has
We
to
can't have
be
nice things.
self-driving or self-flying cars because then you
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, if we can get to that point, that'd be great. But I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna get to that. I think we're gonna get to more of a cyberpunk version versus a cyber dystopia or cyber
I think so.
utopia version.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think so. I think
I
our
think
cars are
capitalism
going to
will
be.
get in the way,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
as it always does.
As it usually does.
Bronwyn, what about you? Is there any downsides to believing in fictional elements?
I think that there's an obvious like potential downside, but I think that the downside of not believing in it is more detrimental. I think that we need to have like uh just no cap on our imagination and our ability to believe or
Yeah,
hope or like a
I
lot
mean,
of things that we have now would seem like science fiction years ago.
Sure.
Like the
mhm.
fact that you can just pull up this like screen and see a person
Yeah.
in another country, like
It
that
is
was
weird.
really science fiction at one
It
point.
is.
So I think that we should believe in this. Like we should hope for more or think there's more out there and experience the magic in the world because there constantly is magic in the world and our
Yeah.
eyes are sometimes closed to it. So
And that's the crazy part, right? Like we don't like the shit that we see every day, we use every day, even now we take for granted, right? Like how the fuck am I seeing you right now and you're hearing my voice and vice versa?
Right.
I mean, the science, the engineering answer is it's code and it's data that then turns into a picture. But even that's wild. Like that's crazy. Like to know like the inner workings of how this shit works is so mind-boggling. It does sound magical in a way, and I think that's what's really cool about it. And you even hear all the time like scientists or physicists or cosmologists, they'll say like, yeah, I got into science because of my influence from Star Wars or Star Trek. I wanted
Right.
to go, I wanted to explore the universe and hopefully see the semblance of these worlds. So I think
Yeah.
Ron's right on the money with that.
No, I think that's definitely a good I do think that there's a balance that has to be struck. Like I think you have to keep an open mind, an open imagination. I think you should, I think that you can really strive for something better, something cooler, a brighter future. I think there's a person on TikTok that I think about who um is making Jarvis because he was inspired by Iron Man, right? And is making an AI that is as like intelligent as Jarvis. And I've got a little bit more on. I think he's going to come back into the conversation a little bit later in the deep dive, but I think like having and believing in science fiction in that way, like that those things could be possible and could be attainable to human beings, I think is great. But there has to be a balance of it. And I think back to even if you think before QAnon, think of War of the Worlds. The broadcast that shaped why we can't. It was a lot of the things that we can or can't say on certain broadcasts because of people are gullible and stupid at the end of the day. And if you make something too close to reality that's supposed to be enjoyed as fiction, some people will literally take it that way.
But I think
And
I think that Orson Welles wanted to fuck with people. Like I think that was like I don't think it was like people were too stupid to realize. I think that he framed it in a way that he wanted to get that reaction.
And I think that's happened twice. I think it happened once here in New Jersey, and the other time I think it was in like Brazil or something, where like a similar situation happened where a broadcast about aliens landing and attacking like caused mass panic.
Yeah. I mean, I think that irregardless, Bronwyn, even if he did mean to do it, I mean, the fact of the matter is that people bought it. People really, people were dumb enough to go along with it, and it does show that he as an artist had power over at least the gullible people. And so I think it's not that I don't think that you should be open to sci-fi connecting into the universe. That's the whole reason we're talking about all this stuff right now.
Right.
I think that there has to be a balance between the two, of balancing of being grounded in reality but open to fiction. That's how I'm going to put it. Being grounded in reality but open to fiction.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, what even is reality anyways? I mean, Elon Musk thinks this is all just a simulation, right? That we're all just floating around in the Matrix. How do we know we're not stuck in the Matrix? Remember how in Inception, how you had the little totem that you spun, if you're awake or dreaming? What is your totem, Bronwyn? What grounds you to this reality?
I don't have one. I'm not
no
reality.
Like high level. What makes you how are you sure that we're not in the Matrix?
But I do think we are in the Matrix. Like I think we're in the Matrix. I mean, I see it all the time. Like I see little signs of like the fabric of my reality kind of like shifting based on like what I think, or seeing like repeats of things like happen around me where I'm like, that's kind of odd. So I mean, I fully think I'm in a simulation, but I'm enjoying it, and so I don't really so I don't really want to be grounded to reality.
That's a pretty like what's the word, like Neil version of like reality, like reality's a simulation, but like it's a vibe. I'm vibing, we're vibing, who cares?
I mean, it makes sense, right?
That's beautiful.
I mean,
I like that.
She's not wrong. Like, and if it is, then damn. I mean, so what? Like, it's our reality, right? Like this.
Yeah. Do you have a totem, Kev? What grounds you to this reality? How do you know we're not living in a simulation? Or
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. There's actually a statistic that says we have a 50% chance of living in a simulation or not living in a simulation, based on the fact that if it's already possible, then it's and has the idea has been conceived or something, then that more likely it's probable. But that's neither here nor there. I could go on and on about this. Like for instance, like in the Matrix, how did you get out of the Matrix? Right, you had to use the payphones. Well, those are starting to disappear now. So I'm just wondering if it's too late to get back to Zion.
Yeah.
No, I think my totem is just putting the phone down and going for a walk.
Yeah.
That kind of grounds me, I guess, in reality, whatever reality is. But reality is a matter of perspective and perception. Like two people could look at the same thing and have a totally different reality. I'm not trying to go too deep here, too existential, but
you want to know what grounds me to this reality?
Yeah.
Shitty people. I'm not kidding. Okay.
Okay.
That's what makes me feel like this is all just a random, chaotic, just one monkey fucked another monkey and we all got here somehow. Like that, it's all just fucking,
just a rude and just NPCs.
It's all just primal chaos. That's all what that it is. And it's because like you'll see something nice go on in the world, you see something beautiful, and then you'll just see, just some asshole do some stupid shit or just be a jackass in the Walmart parking lot or be just absolutely idiotic, fucking step in a dirty diaper in the Sonic parking lot or some shit like that. Something like that makes me go, oh yeah, if this is a simulation, then they were really thorough on the shittiness of humanity. And to me, it leans more on just the chaos of just, we're all here on a big floating rock and have no fucking idea what we're doing kind of thing. So I think shitty people are my totem.
That makes sense. That's ironically that's interesting. Like I think about that too, like where things get so weird, right? Like 2020 was like such a weird fucking year. You're like, did we break something? Like did we overload do we need an update that we just forgot to do? Like is there something going on here? Because then like even like just time felt weird and something. It felt like someone's like fucking with the patch, like not giving us the patch notes and just doing behind the scenes, like just testing things up. Like
we got an update and no patch notes.
What happens if we
shadow update?
Right. What happens if we
version 1 of Cyberpunk?
Yeah. What happens if we throw a pandemic with civil unrest and then distort the concept of time? Let's see how that does. Like, and then it goes back to normal. Yeah, like it's weird.
Yeah, it does.
And the only way it's not a simulation is if you die. Like, what the
right. I mean, you may not even know. I mean, what if we have? You
may not even know. You don't know. That's just it. Who knows what that is, right? So it's crazy, man.
Everything both like doesn't matter, but then it also matters, and like that's just life. Like you can think of it in a perspective of like, oh, we're in a simulation. Why does life matter? It's like it matters because you're here living it. You're like contributing
what you got.
to your reality, and if you want to create one that's like good and like beneficial to you, then you're like benefiting others too, and like that's what makes it worth it. Is like other people and just
your experience.
Yeah, and you have just as much option to waste space in the universe and contribute nothing to the universe. But if that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do. You have your right to do that. But it's just, to me, that's just not. That's like not really worth it. You might as well be contributing as much to society as a grain of sand. Like that's.
Hey, don't be mean to sand.
You're right. Sand could do some wonderful things. You can melt it into glass.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you can lay on it and like feel each individual like granule just like massaging your skin in the sunlight.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm selling sand short for sure.
I think it's One of my favorite philosophers, Alan Watts, had a quote where he said, I'm probably butchering it for sure, paraphrasing, but basically he says, whether you say it is or isn't, that's what it is. It's yeah. I was like,
yeah. Chat's going, Caberdoodle, I did a video for science, for a science event where they had a segment on science fiction writers, because they make it happen in our future. Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff that we've seen in sci-fi has come forward, and totally awesome. We want jetpacks. Where the hell is my jetpack? Nihilistic optimism from Savage Patch Kid. Yeah. I mean, this. There's a lot here in this topic, but
to unpack.
Fiction isn't always about as being as distant from reality as possible, right? Life imitates art, and thus art is a reflection of life, right? And that reflection is not always positive. Can you guys think of any examples where fiction has taught us about our own reality? Kat, we'll start with you.
I want to say Watchmen, and that first episode, that opening scene of Tulsa, right? And I didn't know like Black Wall Street was a thing until I had to look it up. I thought it was just the historical take on. I thought it was just like historical fiction, right? Like, I mean, it was set, obviously when it happened. It shows it was like 1921 and everything, and I was like, I knew that it was fucked up and racist, but I didn't know to what extent that they just basically eradicated any form of African and Black wealth in this country. Just a literal domestic act of terror before like terror was even known what terrorism was, right? Like, and like to their own people, like to their own like American citizens, and to, like just and having like having this wiped away from history, essentially. Like, I didn't know it, and I felt embarrassed and kind of ashamed of not knowing that this even happened.
It was like the first bombing by plane on American soil, and none of us fucking knew about it.
No, like not many people knew. And again, it's largely part because one, it's not taught in schools.
Yeah,
it's not, and it should be. We know why it's not. I'm not going to necessarily go that far or go there. I can, but
I mean, I think it's relevant. I think it's relevant even in the Steve Rogers, John Walker conversation.
Yeah,
we looked at Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier right now, and it was supposed to represent a transition that's happening in America right now, and a nationalistic way of approaching towards the Captain America role. And it was incredibly relevant and taught us a lot about the reality that's going on around us. But that was also based in a foundational element of white supremacy that's always been around in this country. And I think Watchmen, I think Lovecraft Country, I think Falcon and Winter Soldier are all great examples of stuff that have been able to kind of really reflect what that foundational white supremacy looks like within our culture. Braun, can you think of any?
So I'm sort of thinking of it in a different way, of like maybe how science fiction shows you what could be, as opposed to like directly reflecting what is. So it kind of can show you like how a society can function in a way that is better than ours. Like, for example, something like Star Trek, where you see this like sense of equality amongst like everybody, and there's like no hunger, there's no like need for war within their society. Like in
Star Trek, they don't even have money. Exactly. They have no need for money.
So I feel like you like see something like that when everyone's needs are taken care of, and like everyone's like on the same level.
That sounds like socialism.
But I don't think, is it? I mean, maybe Star Trek world is.
Maybe it is, but it sounds really nice in Star Trek, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great," but then they're like, "Wow, I don't want the government to pay for people's food."
It'll work.
Yeah.
We don't have all the resources, obviously, but I don't know. Even just like the idea is like something as simple as equality, like being shown in that level. Like, you don't have to take like the whole society apart, but I think a lot of times science fiction has been a lot more open-minded and progressive. So
Yeah, I think that this, I think that with we can talk about plenty of negative examples. I think *Handmaid's Tale* is a great negative example as well. We've seen people actually use that uniform to go protest certain things that are going on, and to say, like, we don't want this future, this fictional future, to become our future. And I think that there's plenty of examples like that. But my next question kind of transitions a lot to what you're talking about, Brahman, which is, like, these things don't always work themselves out in a negative way. It's not always somebody pointing out bad things about society. Sometimes, we can, well, sometimes you can point out bad things about society, but progress it towards something good. The one of the back in the heat of the civil rights movement, during one of episode of Mr. Rogers' Playhouse, which is obviously a fictitious show for children, right?
Yeah.
It was during the time when they were pouring bleach in swimming pools to get black people not to swim in the swimming pools with them. Mr. Rogers had his mailman, who was a black man, a neighbor, and come on the show and have it dip his feet in the water of his pool, that was there. And that was a huge thing for society to see, and for a lot of people to see in a fictitious element, that we need to start treating people like human fucking beings. And that that there's not a lot of people out there that are agreeing with what you're doing. There's a reason why he did that on that day, on that time. And I think that we can use fiction, and we can use media to have those conversations. But we all have used fiction to shape our future in a lot of ways. We've peppered it throughout the conversation, right? I talked earlier about the guy making Jarvis. What are some ways that you've seen fiction shape the future in positive ways, Bronwyn? Like, what are some things we've already seen come out, and what are some things you hope for the future that fiction can help shape?
So I think there's a lot of positive role models within fiction and within science fiction and comic books and movies. Like, if you think of just like the superhero universe, for instance, and I know, like, people get bored, or I guess you don't, but I get bored with that repetitive like structure of the films, where it's like, oh, the heroes have this like great feat and they save the world and like everything's good. But like, I like that sense of responsibility, and like you're rooting for this heroic movement to happen. And I think that like that gives us like someone to look up to and something to look up to. Like, you want to like save the world, but like that can be in like a smaller scale of your own interactions in your own life. And I think that the more good people are what are going to shape a better society, in a sense. So if you are portraying that, and you are not always kind of like glorifying the like bad aspects, you can inspire people to like do a little bit better. I think it just really comes down to the people.
Yeah, I agree. I think the hero's tale in general, which has been around for centuries, it's been around since the Epic of Gilgamesh. I mean, even Jesus's tale falls into the stereotypical hero's tale. But it is a good basic structure for moral development, and because that structure doesn't change, just the characters do in going through that story. I think that is like a huge thing that you can see on how society approaches morality and different kinds of decision making. Because I mean, the hero's tale branches off on all different kinds of elements there. But I've always talked about this, and I think I've talked about this on other Geek Lives too, that I see comic book characters as a modern day pantheon for morality, really. They are kind of the way that, back in the days of the Greek and Roman gods, they used like Poseidon to understand why the seas and oceans exist, Zeus to understand why the sky makes thunderous booms at night, and all that kind of stuff. But now the things that are more ambiguous to us are what it means to be a good person, what it means to be a patriot, things like that. And so I think that in that sense, comic book characters and stuff like that are a pantheon for our own morality. And in those ways, they can shape our future. When we see Falcon as Captain America and see that he too can represent the icon of American culture that is Captain America. That does something to shape our future and what we see in other people, like subconsciously, however you want to look at it. Seeing gay characters on screen, seeing one of the big things I think of is Schitt's Creek got a lot of praise, right? And one of the biggest things it got praised for is its representation of queer characters. And like some people may be scratching their heads because like they didn't put a spotlight on their queer characters. They didn't have them go through some horrible traumatic experience that none of the other characters went through. No, it wasn't trauma based, and that's actually what people ended up liking about it so much. It was an honest take on queer culture because it wasn't trauma based. And things like that are fiction that shape our reality. We don't have to look at queer people every single time and just see the fucking trauma. We can just and stuff like that. I think that those are ways that it helps shape our future more so than just jetpacks and AI. But what do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I think a lot of times fiction or works of fictions are used to sort of, in a way, put a mirror or a reflection to society, right? That's where that inspiration is drawn from a lot of times, and people and people misinterpret it all the time because they try to skew their own reality, right? Like we see that with the use of Punisher by law enforcement and stuff, and that symbol, and we see it all the time with people idolizing characters like the Joker or BoJack Horseman and things like that. And I think those are obviously works of fiction coming from places of truth, in that these are either real aspects of the creators' lives or aspects or real life scenarios around them in which they're like reporting the truth, or essentially like reporting on the truth, right? Like we see that in music. Specifically within hip hop, is kind of a famous quote from Tupac saying that he's sort of reporting on what's going on within his community, and so I think it's in some ways it's a mirror in a way that a lot of times it's either a mirror in a sense that it's telling people to do better, or it's a mirror in the sense that it's a warning. These are the this is what the pitfalls are for us as a society if we don't tread lightly, right?
Yeah.
That's where like the apocalypse or the cyberpunk genres or the dystopian science fiction films comes from, right? It's just this could be the direction we're headed if we're not too careful. That these are either real aspects of the creators' lives or aspects
I agree.
of real life scenarios around them in which they're like reporting the truth, or that these are either
we kind of came to this conversation, right? Let's be honest. The whole reason we wanted to do this deep dive was because of aliens, right? The UFOs were confirmed by the U.S. government. I think we got a report to Congress by June 1st that could be absolutely huge. We got Navy SEALs going on there, we saw some dude in a fucking acorn ship just flying, doing donuts in the sky, and we have no idea who has the technology to do that, but sure was fucking freaky. And we're like, and more, and anything, So, with that said, with all the conversation we've just talked about in mind, right? Based on our past fictitious encounters with aliens, how do you think the world's going to react on June 1st?
I think it's going to be underwhelming.
Yeah.
In the sense that I think it's going to be like a bunch of redacted stuff or stuff that is inconclusive. I think it's going to be more of the same, where they're not going to dance around and deny UFOs, but they're not going to essentially give away what they have, or even if they have anything, right? Like the government might just not know what the fuck's going on fully anyway.
Yeah.
Depends how far down the rabbit hole you want to get to. But I think that it's been going on for so long, and that people are so like, I just think that the government's not going to, I don't have that much faith in that they're going to give enough to like satiate us and be like, oh shit, like, you know, like they're not gonna give like an autopsy video or you know, shaking hands with some like race of aliens that are like tall, blue skinned with green hair. You know, like I don't think it's gonna be anything like that. And but on the other side of that, if it is something that's fucking like just mind blowing, because maybe they set this deadline because who knows, maybe like, let's get weird for a second. Maybe the aliens were like, all right, you guys got to come out by this date, or we're just gonna make our announcement known. Prepare yourselves, right? So maybe the government's like, fuck, man, we're at a crossroads now, and maybe it's gonna be so mind blowing that it's gonna be like unfathomable. That you can't like. I know, like I always stand by the belief that I think there is intelligent life out there. Now, to the extent of that, I try to be, for lack of better words, agnostic. I like to believe that, sure, maybe aliens have visited us here and there, and maybe still do, and you know, there's a plethora of them out in the universe. But the sort of the scientist in me won't necessarily allow me to fully go there because it's kind of a you know, it's facts, right? There has to be unequivocal proof. But you know, the science fiction nerd in me is like, oh hell yeah, all this shit is real, you know. So it's like selling war, constantly going back and forth. But for me, it's like, with all that being said, I still think I lean more to the side that hell yeah, they exist and they're coming here. But at the same time, I don't know what my reaction is going to be. I think it's going to be out of the realm of like, it's going to be even if I saw a ship land at the fucking White House and these gray aliens walk out, I think I'm still gonna be. I feel like I have the same feeling like when I was watching the insurrection. Like, what the fuck am I looking at? You know, like I'm not gonna have like I don't know what I'm gonna feel. I don't.
Yeah. Brahman, how do you think, based on our past fictitious encounters with aliens, how do you think the world's gonna react on June 1st?
Well, I think that, I mean, there's already been proof that has come out, and it's not like things come out and people just like look at it and they're like, oh, and then go on with their lives. So that's probably just going to be what happens. I don't think that, I mean, I've seen UFOs. I like completely believe in this stuff. I don't have any doubt, and I think it's pretty wild, but I don't think that the human race, in a sense, is going to really be affected until, like, we are able to have access to the technology that these species have access to, like crazy like batteries that last, like, that never go out, or like actually are using these ships ourselves. Like, until we are implementing the technologies, I don't think it's going to really have like that much of an effect on our lives. Or if an alien straight up, like, maybe they have, but like if they're go on a news channel and like, hey, this is who we are, this is where we're from, like, listen to us. I think that we're very blindsided, or like, not blindsided, we're very just like have pulled like the wool over our eyes about this whole situation. And I don't think that people are going to be that radically affected by this news. I don't know what's going to happen on June 1st though, but unless it's one of those two things, I don't really see anybody's like foundation getting like shattered.
Y'all have very reserved opinions about people. I feel that people are mostly stupid, and I feel like if we give them an ounce of reality to what has usually been dismissed as conspiracy theory, there's people like, well, everything's on the table now. Fucking dragons are eating kids, and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just gonna go fucking nuts. That's what I think is gonna happen. And I think if they've got the more evidence that they show, unfortunately, I think the crazier people will go. You know, I agree heavily with the Men in Black phrase with humans are stupid, panicky creatures. You know, and I think that, especially after COVID, I think that very much that if the more evidence is out there, the crazier it's going to look. The more speculative it is, I think it's actually the better for it, because people will be able to easily dismiss it. But you know, and I think there will be some people, especially if they, again, you got photos of you know, someone who looks like Paul. You know, I think that people are going like there's going to be people that are like, well, what else didn't we know? What else did we dismiss as conspiracy theory before?
And that's what I mean, like, because I don't know, it all comes down to how much they release, right? Like if it's just
Right.
another like grainy video, and which are remarkable to me, but some other people like, oh, it's just a fly, right? You know what I mean? Like it has to be,
Yeah.
I think it has to be unequivocally, it has to be irrefutable that this shit is real, right? I don't think it can't, like there can't be any ambiguity or anything like that, because it's going to have like, you're going to even have the same thing where it's like people are like, oh yeah, well I've always known aliens.
What if they bring an
right?
alien in to testify in front of Congress?
That's
Well,
going to be
that's
fucking
what I'm saying.
huge.
Like that is the
Yeah.
thing. It would
Right.
have to be that because everyone
Right.
is so skeptical
I
that you show photo, even like you show photo of a different life form, they'll be like, oh, that's photoshopped. Oh, that's
Yeah.
just someone wearing some latex on their
Yeah.
face. Like, oh, that's like you said, like a fly in the video, or like you can't like people just are gonna just be
It's
blinded to it. And
yeah.
until there's like a literal alien testifying in front of Congress, like you
Yeah.
say, or unless we have access to like their equipment and like see a UFO flying around in the Central Park or something, like I don't know. I think that photos, videos, like these have been coming out for decades.
What
Like
about
this isn't new.
what about if this happened, and this, I think this is as real as it could probably, as far as it could probably go. What if it's a State of the Union address and Biden does his walk down the corridor and then announces, "Oh, we know the existence. We know. We're announcing that we are confirming the existence of extraterrestrials." Yeah.
And then his face opens up, just.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering which of us like are
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah.
It's definitely not me. I am definitely a human person.
Same here.
I do human things all the day with my human friends.
And my human stick things.
My
That
human, in my human stick things. Exactly. All right. Well, that will wrap it up for a very interesting deep dive. Thank you guys for going on that journey with us. But this week's deep dive really does transition well into